This is the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network.
Jackson swings, hits it in the air, deep to right field. He has done it again. Unbelievable.
Coming up, we'll have a recap of the previous Padres game, a preview of today's starting pitching matchup, our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Mike Shildt.
Ultimately, what we're here to do is win.
From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Today, the Padres take on the Washington Nationals in the first game of a three-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today on the mound for the Nationals, left-hander Mitchell Parker, and for the Padres, right-hander Stephen Kolek. Hi, good everyone. Sam Levitt with you from inside the Western Metal Building at Petco Park on Fernando Tatis Jr. bobblehead night. First pitch is coming up at 6:40. Between now and first pitch, my goodness, we have a lot to do. We'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll also hear from Fernando Tatis Jr., Jackson Merrill, Luis Arraez, C.J. Abrams, and in just a little bit, we check in with Jesse Agler. But first, it's time to set the table, brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations, La Mesa Vista and Oceanside, and at FraserFarmsMarket.com. Padres entered today 42-35, a nice series win against the Kansas City Royals over the weekend. They entered today 5 games out of first place in the National League West and just a half game out of the final wild card spot in the NL. Meanwhile, the Nationals come in 32-46. The Nats have had a rough month. 4-16 in the month of June. That included an 11-game losing streak. Nationals just lost 2 of 3 against the Dodgers over the weekend in LA. Well, the Padres were going for their first series win in a couple of weeks yesterday against Kansas City. Let's rewind.
Did you miss what happened in the last Padres game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind on the Padres Radio Network.
Randy Vasquez and Seth Lugo matched zeros early on yesterday. 5 scoreless innings for both. That brought us to the top of the 6th inning. Still a scoreless game. Vasquez gave up a 1-out single to Vinny Pasquantino. That brought up the veteran Salvador Perez.
And Perez launches it to left center field. Wade is back to watch this one gonna go. Salvador Perez with his 9th of the year and a 2-run shot here in the 6th inning will give the Royals the first 2 runs of this game.
That's all Vasquez allowed in the 6th inning. Lugo then retired the side in order in the bottom of the 6th inning. He had retired 18 in a row. Vasquez pitched the scoreless top of the 7th. Padres still trailed 2-0 going bottom 7. Jackson Merrill finally broke up the stretch of retired batters with a double against Lugo to start the inning. Later in the inning, the bases were loaded for pinch hitter Jose Iglesias against Royals reliever Lucas Erceg.
And a line drive into right field. Caglione coming on, not going to get there. Merrill has scored. Sheets is on his way. Here's the throw, not in time. Pinch hit, 2-run single to tie it up for Jose Iglesias.
What a moment for Jose Iglesias. Jackson Merrill almost gave the Padres the lead with a home run in the 8th inning, but Jack Caglione robbed him at the right field fence. In the top of the 9th inning, the Padres defense had a moment of their own.
1-0 in the air to right center field. Long run, Merrill and Tatis, and neither will get there. Jackson cuts it off on the warning track, sends it in. They're going to wave him. Waters on his way. The throw, Diaz is tagged. He missed the bag. Elias has him pinned behind home plate, and he's out. Great job cutting it off in the outfield, getting it back in, and Waters is out trying to score the go-ahead run here in the top of the 9th inning.
That kept the game tied at 9. Going bottom 9, Luis Arraez singled. Xander Bogaerts doubled to get Arraez to third base. That set things up for Mr. OMG.
And Iglesias swings, hits it up the middle. To his left, Witt has it. Jump throw home. Not in time. Arraez scores, and the ball game is over. How about Jose? Iglesias, a game-tying pinch hit homer in the 7th. And now he brings home the winning run in the bottom of the 9th inning as the Padres take the rubber game in walk-off fashion, 3-2 against the Royals.
What a moment for Jose Iglesias, the Jose Iglesias game. 3-2. Padres win it as they take the rubber game of their 3-game series against Kansas City. As we get ready for first pitch coming up at 6:40 in this series opener against the Nationals, let's go inside the Jerry Coleman Broadcast Center.
Let's take a trip up to the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup with Jesse Agler in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
All right, Jesse, a new series begins here tonight. A lot of familiar faces in town. We'll hear from C.J. Abrams a little bit later. We'll hear from Mackenzie Gore a little bit later in the series. We'll see James Wood. But to focus on the Padres part of this series, Padres coming off, obviously, a very nice series win against Kansas City. And, Jesse, I think you look at this long stretch the Padres have been in, 26 games in 27 days. They're starting to play better. You saw Michael King out there playing catch earlier. All the news good as of late on Yu Darvish. And the schedule about to lighten up a little bit. I feel better about this team, I think, than I felt a handful of days ago. What do you think?
One of my low-key theories on a Major League season that I don't like to run out there publicly very often because I think it probably makes me sound a little silly, is that, for a good team, this doesn't apply to a bad team. This applies to a good team. Obviously, the Padres this year are a good team. You can figure out when their struggles are going to come just based on the schedule. And I don't mean like who they're playing. I mean a stretch like the one you're talking about that they're in right now, 26 games in 27 days or whatever it is. I think, you could have looked at that. And again, I don't know that this is intellectually honest enough for me to take it to A.J. Preller or Mike Shildt with a straight face. But I kind of believe it still, nonetheless, that, you could have looked at the calendar and you could have said, man, that's a lot of games jammed together right there. And I'm saying like you could have done this in January, before you know anything about injuries, before you know anything about just the attrition of it all. And you might say to yourself, you know what? I don't think that's going to be the best stretch of the year for this team. And it has not been the best stretch of the year for this team. But, they're surviving it. They are where they are standings-wise, very much in the thick of everything. That's what matters right now. It is still early enough that I don't think you got to get too tied up in the standings and the win-loss record so long as you're in the mix. And they're obviously very much in the mix.
Yeah, very much in the mix. It's been a really tough stretch schedule-wise, but Padres winning 3 out of their last 4, which, of course, you'll take. Focusing on Stephen Kolek here today, Jesse. It's interesting. Last season, Matt Waldron stepped up for what felt like, and it really was, a span of 2-3 months, and was so important to this rotation. You look at what Kolek has done. You look at what Bergert has done. You look at what Randy Vasquez has done. He was terrific in yesterday's game. It kind of feels like the Padres are having that version of that right now with some of the injuries they've dealt with in the rotation, but they're seemingly getting it from a number of guys. It feels kind of Matt Waldron-ish to me in a sense.
No doubt about it. And again, that's the sign of a good team. Because, save last year's Mariners and a couple other teams in the last 25 years, you're going to need a bunch of guys to start games. It's just every team, every year, it is going to be required because there are going to be injuries. There are going to be good surprises. There are going to be bad surprises. And you got to be able to, have some people to rely on. And the quality of those people is critical to surviving the long and arduous season as it is every year. And you're absolutely right. If not for Matt Waldron last year, and I know he was kind of out of the picture by the time the playoffs rolled around. But if not for Matt Waldron last year, they're not in position to get into the playoffs last year.
Agreed.
They're not in position to be able to play all those important games in September that they played. And look, I don't know what the future holds for a Kolek or a Bergert or a Vasquez, but you are absolutely correct to point out that what they are contributing right now is, in a big picture sense, but also in every fifth day sense, absolutely imperative for this team to be getting. And Sam, you and I were there all spring training in Peoria, and one of the conversations we all kept having on the air and off the air was about the pitching depth and about how, hey, now how nice is this? There's a real battle for a couple of spots in the rotation. And then Nick Pivetta signed, and the conversation became a little bit different in a good way because there was really only one spot at that point that was being battled for. And we knew. We all said it then. We all knew it then. We're going to hear from these guys, whether he's the odd man out, on March 28th or not. He's going to be somebody that is going to be relied upon, and we're seeing a lot of that right now.
Jesse, squeeze in one more thing here. The Nationals come to town, and they're a really interesting team. I was walking around their clubhouse earlier today, and it just struck me. I was like, man, this is a talented team, but they're really, really young. They've had a really rough month of June. Obviously, right now when these two teams play, especially with James Wood playing here in San Diego for the first time, there's a lot of focus on the Soto trade and who the Padres gave up and all that. It's an interesting team. They're clearly building something in Washington, D.C., but it does feel like they're still maybe on the earlier end of it because this is still a really, really young team that is going through some struggles right now, it feels like.
Super young team, but also because the clock started as early as it did on guys like Abrams and Wood and Gore, it feels like the clock is ticking a little bit on them now. And I'm not suggesting a year or two, but like if I'm running the Nats, and obviously anybody intelligent enough would not allow me to run the Nats, but if I'm running the Nats, I'm trying to add big time. Whether it's last offseason or coming up or next offseason, because, we know how this goes. If you don't lock these guys up in a blink of an eye, you're kind of in that position where you're going, oh, man, we got to start thinking about whether we can hold on to these guys long term. And if you're not going to lock them up early and you're not going to necessarily add the pieces, you're left in no man's land. And no man's land is maybe the worst place to be, when you're talking about roster building. And that's the thing that, would scare me if I were running a club that we're not bad enough for it to be a total rebuild. We're not good enough to be competing for a playoff spot. So what are we? To be that sort of terminally 78 to 82 win team really doesn't do you any good. I would never say you're wasting talent because I think that, is a little bit disrespectful to the entertainment that these guys provide on a night in, night out basis. But, you have a legit young core here. In James Wood, you could argue, you've got the most exciting young player in all of baseball. Certainly one of the three, right? And so you've got to be able to go out there and make it count when you have those guys. I mean, James Wood is off to a start that can be compared to the start that Juan Soto got off with them. Yeah. So, that's the kind of guy you're talking about. And you want to supplement that as quickly as possible because, you're fighting for entertainment dollars there. That's one of those cities. They got an NFL team everybody loves. They have a hockey team. They have a basketball team. They've got an MLS team. People aren't just going to show up at a default there. And you got to go out and give them a reason to show.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, and it's hard to believe C.J. Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, they're already beginning their third full season with the Nationals. So it feels like the Soto trade was not that long ago, but it was actually 3 years ago at this point. So I think they're in an interesting spot. I'm sure you and Tony will talk plenty more about that. Jesse, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you and Tony at 6:30. Thanks so much.
You got it, Sam.
All right, that's Jesse Agler joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 6:40. When we come back, we hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Plus, a little bit later, we hear from Jackson Merrill. We hear from Fernando Tatis Jr., from Luis Arraez. We're going to hear from everybody here on our pregame coverage today. Game one of this three-game series coming up against the Nats. Our pregame coverage from Petco Park continues after this. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park on Fernando Tatis Jr. Bat Flip Bobblehead Night. Everybody having a good time here tonight at Petco Park as we get ready for this series opener against the Washington Nationals. First pitch is coming up at 6:40. Let's hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt before today's game.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Served up by Sin Lee Food, where fresh meets flavor. Find farm fresh produce, bold Asian spices, and gourmet ingredients at 4665 El Cajon Boulevard. Sin Lee Food, the cook's Asian resource.
Mike, let's start with the guy on the mound today, Stephen Kolek, coming off a real nice outing in L.A. his last time out. What continues to impress about Stephen Kolek, the way he works?
Stuff's been good. Command of the strike zone, controlling counts, all of it, being able to get early outs. Changeup's been good. Cutter's been good. Power sinker's been, the calling card has been good in all phases.
Jose Iglesias in the lineup today, coming off what was a big impact on yesterday's win. What kind of impact has he had, both on the field, but also as a veteran presence in the clubhouse?
We've got a veteran clubhouse. He adds to it, so that's important. He understands how to see the game, play the game. I think I was on display for sure yesterday, a couple 2-strike hits. Jose does a nice job. We have a lot of regulars. We're getting the lead off his feet to get a DH day to day, but we've been able to pass the DH around and get him on the field. So he's played second, short, and third more recently. Again, went in yesterday and got a couple big hits, big hit and a big RBI to win a game. So he's done a nice job for us.
As far as the relay yesterday to keep the game tied, I mean, that's the kind of thing that you practice going back to the early days of February in Peoria. When you have a moment of play like that contributes to a win, I mean, is that especially satisfying from your seat?
Yeah, it's very satisfying. It shows up a lot more, at least in my eyes, than maybe other people are peripherally are aware of it. We do a lot of things very fundamentally sound that lead us to win a game. We do a lot of things fundamentally sound that keep us in games. And we play a very clean style of baseball and do a lot of things right. And Jackson did a great job, just a really well-executed baseball play. Busts his tail over, keeps the ball from getting in the gap. Probably had a thought about diving for a ball and then realized it wasn't there, was smart, went, grabbed it, came in through a low, nice, easy-to-handle ball from Jose. Because he's able to do that, Iglesias is able to, turn and gather some momentum, which allows him to make a stronger throw and a more accurate throw when the first throw is accurate. And he did just that, and then Diaz in a good spot to tag him out. So it's a big play that was well executed, and it's the fundamentals that we expect and work on, and but don't take for granted.
With Kolek, how have you noticed that sinker you talked about? How have you noticed his understanding of the pitch and like when guys are on base, how he can use it as a weapon to get a couple outs, and how he can use it as a weapon to kind of keep hitters off balance?
Yeah, I think there was it's one of the things that I think that the eye test will tell you, but also that analytics will tell you that just where you're throwing it, where it's getting the most play. Last year the bullpen, is coming up, maybe just because he's trying to get his feet wet, just trying to make sure he's in the strike zone with it. But there was a real clarity that, with righties, he just wasn't throwing it in enough. And when he is throwing it in, like, you're going to get ground balls. And then that's one of the benefits I felt like for Steven to make the transition to start was his ability to throw strikes, his ability to have a power sinker that was able to get guys on the ground if he got in traffic and, you're one pitch away from being out of an inning with one out. So, it's just a good pitch that has a lot of awareness to how to use it now best.
Lineup, Arraez, second straight day in the cleanup spot, switched with Merrill. What do you like about that?
We're still getting a feel for it. I mean, yesterday we saw it, and both guys contributed. So you could have said, well, they could have done that in the spots they were in. But I think it makes some sense. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. And but until we play with it, we won't have a better idea. But I like the idea of it.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt earlier today inside the Padres dugout. We'll hear more from Mike on our post-game coverage coming up later on this evening. You heard Mike mention the lineup there. Let's give you tonight's Padres starting 9. Leading off for the Padres, Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field, Jackson Merrill in center batting second, Manny Machado at third base batting third, Luis Arraez, the DH, batting cleanup, Xander Bogaerts at shortstop batting fifth, Gavin Sheets in left field batting sixth, Jose Iglesias at second base batting seventh, Jake Cronenworth at first base batting eighth, and Elias Diaz doing the catching and batting ninth with right-hander Stephen Kolek on the mound for game one of this three-game series against the Washington Nationals. You heard Mike Shildt talk about the shuffling in the lineup the Padres did yesterday, moving Jackson Merrill in his return from the IL up to the number 2 spot, moving Luis Arraez to the cleanup spot, and certainly yesterday for the Padres offense, it worked out. Padres picked up a win. Here was Luis Arraez earlier today inside the Padres clubhouse. He was asked about batting cleanup and being asked to be in that spot for the Padres.
If it's something for how the team win, I'll be there. Batting 4, batting 9, batting 6, whatever spot I have there, I just need opportunity to go there and do something for the team. I'll go there and do it.
Luis, Jose Iglesias getting a start today obviously had a big impact on yesterday's game. What's it been like playing with a veteran infielder like that?
Especially him. He have a really good energy, and I love watching him play defense. He's ready. He's ready every time when they need there, and I enjoy him.
He's talked about being ready for his role, being ready in any situation. What stands out about his personality in particular?
His personality is different. He like music. He like singing. For me, he's different. He enjoy his life. He's singing. I mean, I wanna sing like him because he distract his mind. He not think about only baseball. He think about a lot of things, you know. So baseball is hard. So he look like when he go there, he enjoy him.
Are you trying to convince him to get you on a song sometime?
Nah, I mean, if he invite me, I'll be there. But I don't think I'm good with that.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to kick things up another notch? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not on the Padres Radio Network.
Let's take a look at who's hot, who's not. We begin with the hot category, and we take a look at spots 4 through 7 in the Padres lineup today. All those guys are in the hot category. You know what? I take it back. 4 through 6 in the hot category here. Luis Arraez in the midst of a 9-game hitting streak, batting .317 in that span. Xander Bogaerts, he's been great as of late. His last 5 games, he's 11 for 19. And Gavin Sheets, he had a 13-game hitting streak, snapped yesterday, batted .313 in 48 at-bats during that 13-game stretch. In the not category, we look at the number 9 batter. That is Elias Diaz, who is just 1 for his last 11. And that's a look at who's hot, who's not, as we walk you up towards first pitch coming up at 6:40. When we come back, we take you through some headlines from around the major leagues. We hear from Jackson Merrill, from Fernando Tatis Jr., and C.J. Abrams. Much more to do on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. This is the Padres Radio Network. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside the Western Metal Building at Petco Park as we get ready for first pitch. Coming up at 6:40, right-hander Stephen Kolek on the mound for the Padres today. Left-hander Mitchell Parker on the mound for the Washington Nationals. Let's take you around the horn.
Let's examine the most important news and the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball. Sam Levitt takes you around the horn. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Get ready for Major League winning when you join Valley View Casino and Hotel's Players Club and receive over $200 in free instant offers. Visit valleyviewcasino.com to learn more today.
Some quick headlines from around the major leagues. The Cincinnati Reds first reinstated infielder Jeimer Candelario from the injured list earlier today and then designated him for assignment. The move comes just a year after the Reds signed Candelario to a 3-year, $45 million contract. The Brewers have a couple of important pitchers on the IL right now, but those guys getting close to returning. Brandon Woodruff and Nestor Cortes finally getting closer to a return after lengthy recoveries from their respective injuries. Woodruff and Cortes both pitched in simulated games earlier today. As far as the Mets, they decided to send down Luis Angel Acuna to AAA, one of their top prospects, ahead of their 4-game series that began today against Acuna's older brother Ronald and the Atlanta Braves. The A's broke ground on their $1.75 billion stadium in Las Vegas today alongside Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred. And finally, the Diamondbacks signed James McCann to a Major League contract following his release from the Atlanta Braves. That was earlier today. The 35-year-old catcher joined the Diamondbacks for tonight's game against the White Sox. And that's a quick look at headlines from around the major leagues. Well, C.J. Abrams at shortstop leading off for the Nationals here today. Of course, almost 3 years ago, Abrams was part of the deal that brought Juan Soto to the Padres, and the Padres sending quite the package back to Washington, including C.J. Abrams, including the guy hitting behind him today and playing left field, James Wood. Here was National shortstop C.J. Abrams inside the Nationals clubhouse earlier today.
Well, CJ, it's been a few years since the trade, but you're back in San Diego once again. How's it feel to be back?
Yeah, it feels good. Be here with the squad, trying to get another win.
Is there any weirdness playing the team that drafted you, or does it wear off after a while?
It kind of wears off. Coming back to San Diego is not a bad place to play. But, it's electric. We're going to go out there, like I said, get a win.
How much fun to see what James Wood is turning into?
Right, he's a star. It's fun to watch. Each and every day he does things that he didn't think were possible. So, going to continue to watch him.
Is there a certain pride that you and Mackenzie and James all kind of take in doing this together and now all playing at pretty peak level at the same time?
Yeah, it's a tight group. Like you said, we were at San Diego at one point, and now we're here doing our thing. So, just do what we can to get more wins.
That was National shortstop C.J. Abrams inside the Nationals clubhouse earlier today. Let's give you the latest on Michael King.
Who's in, who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit them up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Well, Andy Halbrun of the San Diego Union Tribune took some video earlier today, and it's up on social media if you want to check it out. Michael King did throw today, according to Annie, went to 105 feet at, quote, medium to low intensity, around 30 throws. And now we'll have to see how Michael King recovers. And Annie quoting King on today's throwing session, quote, "That was the most normal it felt since I got shut down." And it also sounds like Yu Darvish is trending towards facing hitters once again as a next step as he continues to work his way back. So good news. Michael King out there throwing today. I did not see it. I was, I think, inside one of the clubhouses during that time. But good video and good reporting from Annie of the San Diego Union Tribune on the latest with Michael King. And hopefully a step in the right direction for the very important right-hander for the Padres. Let's give you today's keys to the game.
How will the Padres unlock a win today? These are the keys to the game. Presented by El Centro Motors Ford. Meet your new Ford General Manager, Greg Ryan, now at El Centro Motors Ford, your new Ford truck, Bronco, and SUV HQ. Call Greg directly at 619-944-0774.
Key number 1, don't let Wood feel at home in what could have been his home. A big theme of this series will be James Wood, C.J. Abrams, and Mackenzie Gore returning to Petco Park. Gore will pitch on Wednesday. 3 of the key pieces the Padres traded away for Juan Soto. But for Wood in particular, it feels significant, both because it's his first trip to Petco Park and he's having a great season at just 22 years old. Wood is hitting .279 with 21 home runs, 57 RBIs this season. However, this isn't the first time the Padres have faced James Wood. He went 0-11 with 5 strikeouts against the Padres last July in D.C. We'll see if the Padres can do something like that against Wood here today. Key number 2, keep this rotation rolling. The last couple of days, Padres starting pitching has been great. Dylan Cease went 6 2/3 innings, allowed just 1 run on Saturday. Randy Vasquez went 7 innings, allowed just 2 runs in yesterday's game. So today's question is, can Stephen Kolek deliver that kind of outing today? Kolek was really good against the Dodgers on Wednesday, gave up just 3 runs in 6 innings and a third. He's only made a couple of starts at home. Both have been a little rough. We'll talk more about that later. And key number 3, and this is a big key in this series, get into the Nats' pen. The Nationals' bullpen has been bad this season. The bullpen ERA for Washington, nearly a 6. It's the second highest bullpen ERA in the National League. So if you can get into that pen, the Padres can have a lot of success like that in this series, and that's a look at our keys to today's game. Well, Jackson Merrill and James Wood, they grew up playing baseball together on the East Coast. They were in the same draft class for the Padres back a few years ago. Jackson Merrill, now a star center fielder in San Diego. James Wood, one of the young stars in the game in Washington. Here was Jackson Merrill talking about James Wood and talking about Wood coming to Petco Park for the first time.
James Wood coming to town, and obviously you and him are tied together very closely for the draft and through coming up, and I know you're friends with him. So what is that like when you get to see him, and what have you thought of his success?
Yeah, man. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all. Kid's a beast. He's been a beast since he was 13. You know, it doesn't surprise me at all. Was it 21 homers? He won last night? Yeah, man. Like every day he comes to the field ready to play. You know, everybody's always like, oh, he's moving so slow. He's moving as fast as he can. He's moving fast too. So, you know, we got to be ready for him. He's going to come here and play his ass off. You know, obviously, he didn't get to play here when he debuted, so, you know, it'd be good for him to come back and play against him.
How much do you talk to him?
Every now and then. You know, he checked in on me this past week, which is kind of nice of him. You know, really good dude. So, whenever we can, we text. I know it's difficult, MLB schedule, and East Coast, West Coast doesn't really align a lot.
It's a scary outfield, you know, you, Toddy, and him in there.
Yeah, but, you know, we wouldn't change anything in the past. You know, our team's our team, and he's having fun over there. We're having fun over here, so that's all I can ask. He's having fun.
Do you remember when that trade went down and it was him going out? Like, was there any thought that it might be you going out in that sort of trade?
No, because I was injured for like 3 months that year. So like, I came back to Lakey, our low A for a week, like the last day of the week, and he had been going crazy the whole week. And I was like, I haven't really played, so if they're going to trade for anyone, it's going to be probably someone that's been playing.
Were you with him when he was traded?
Yeah, we were on the bus by Celia.
Yeah. What was that moment like? Can you share it?
It was definitely like, you know, it's on Twitter. Nobody calls the coach. Like, it always gets out on Twitter first, always. So, you know, we all kind of saw it, and we're like, wow, this is crazy. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm mad. I'm happy for these guys, but I'm mad. Like, you know, that's my best friend or whatever you say to us.
That was Jackson Merrill talking about his friendship with James Wood. I'm sure it'll be a little surreal for those two guys to face off against one another here tonight at Petco Park. First pitch coming up at 6:40 between the San Diego Padres and the Washington Nationals. We'll hear from Fernando Tatis Jr. coming up in just a little bit. First, let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard.
Let's take a trip around the bigs to highlight the scores that matter most with our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Premium Beef Patties. Always a hit for grilling.
We have one final today. Orioles beat the Rangers 6-0 in Baltimore. Game's going on right now. Braves ahead of the Mets 3-2 in New York in the 8th inning. Reds leading the Yankees 4-1 in Cincinnati in the 7th inning. Diamondbacks ahead of the White Sox in Chicago 8-0 in the 5th. The Pirates leading the Brewers 4-2 in Milwaukee in the 5th inning. Mariners 7, Twins 2 in Minnesota in the 6th. The Cardinals lead the Cubs 8-1 in St. Louis in the 7th inning. Games yet to begin. Only one other game aside from this one. Red Sox and the Angels in Anaheim at 6:38. And we'll have much more on all those games coming up on our post-game coverage. When we come back, we hear from Fernando Tatis Jr. We also tell you what to watch for in today's game and a full breakdown of today's starting pitching matchup between Stephen Kolek and Mitchell Parker. First pitch coming up at 6:40 right here at Petco Park on the Padres Radio Network. Welcome back to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Your water should be perfect. Sam Levitt with you inside the Western Metal Building here at Petco Park. First pitch coming up at 6:40 for the series opener against the Washington Nationals. We'll hear from Fernando Tatis Jr. in just a little bit. First, let's tell you what to watch for.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For, presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovementsSD.com.
What to watch for in this series opener. We've talked a lot about C.J. Abrams, the leadoff hitter in the Nationals lineup. We've talked a lot about James Wood in left field, batting second, 21 home runs on the year, 22 years old. But don't forget about the guys behind him, because both those guys, Luis Garcia Jr. and Nathaniel Lowe in the 3 and 4 spots, are some very hot hitters for a struggling Nationals team. Nathaniel Lowe had a big weekend in LA, hit 3 home runs with 6 RBIs in the last 2 games of that series. The 6 RBIs matched his total from the first 18 games of June together. Luis Garcia Jr. is batting .341 with 8 RBIs during an 11-game hitting streak. So what to watch for today? Those 2 guys, Garcia and Lowe, in the 3 and 4 spots in this lineup, they can be very, very, very dangerous. Don't forget about them after Abrams and Wood at the very top of the Nationals lineup. And that's a look at what to watch for in today's game. Oh, another thing you always got to watch for, Fernando Tatis Jr., what he can do on the baseball field. Fernando leading off and playing right field today, as usual, in the Padres lineup. Fernando Tatis Jr. spoke inside the Padres clubhouse earlier today.
26 games in 27 days almost. What you sit next to Manny here, posts every day. How tough is a stretch like that just to keep, the focus and everything that required to get through a long season?
Man, it's really hard. But it's part of what we have to do over here and what we signed in for, and it's part of the grind. And obviously doing it right next to a guy like Manny it's really special, because the guy show up every single day, trying to win a ball game in different ways, and you learn from that, and you just want to do the same thing.
It must lift you up to grind through and then start to see some results like the home run over the weekend. You're at the end of that stretch. That work seems like it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. We're here grinding every single day, making adjustments, and it's definitely rewarding when you get stuff like that happen.
Did you already check out the bobblehead?
Yeah, I think I saw it last year. I think it was, but yeah, they have me keeping in touch for a good time.
You guys made this small trade with the Nationals a couple of years ago for a guy named Juan Soto. Are you at all surprised to see how quickly James Wood has developed into the player that he is?
No. I saw him, I think I was in rehab, and we were in there together, and I saw what he was capable of, and I'm definitely not surprised at what he's doing, and I'm just really happy how he's playing baseball right now.
I know you guys were elated when you got Soto in that moment, but at that time when you saw who the players get up, did you think, look out, these guys could be very special very soon? Do you remember thinking that at all?
Just the trade itself speaks for itself. They're not gonna train Juan Soto for any guy in particular, but they were smart about it, and then they got some really good players. And shout out to you for signing them, but also trading them. But it's part of the business.
Great line there from Fernando Tatis Jr. Shout out to AJ for signing him, but also for trading him. Hey, everybody liked that Juan Soto trade at the time. I thought it kind of worked out for both teams, but obviously Washington did get a lot of talent back, and we get to see some of that talent at the top of their lineup today with C.J. Abrams leading off, James Wood batting second, and on the mound for the Padres today, trying to stop those guys, right-hander Stephen Kolek. Let's dive into our pitching matchup between Stephen Kolek and left-hander Mitchell Parker.
Let's take a look at who's on the bump today with our starting pitching preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Stephen Kolek comes into this start 3-2, a 3.59 ERA. He has been very effective in his time in the Padres rotation. Only 2 starts so far this season at home, which is interesting. The 2 starts came May 16th against the Mariners. 5 innings, 5 earned runs given up on 8 hits. The second came on May 27th against the Marlins, gave up 6 earned runs on 6 hits in 5 innings and a third. Kolek was very good against the Dodgers on Wednesday, gave up 3 runs in 6 innings and a third. And we'll see if Stephen Kolek can now bring that success to Petco Park here at home. Meanwhile, left-hander Mitchell Parker on the mound for the Nationals. He looks to stop a 5-start losing streak today, has a 5.04 ERA in that span. Parker gave up 1 run, just a solo home run in 6 innings against the Rockies on Wednesday, but still took the loss in that game as the Rockies won it 3-1. He struck out a season-high 8 batters in that game and walked nobody. He only had a 12% strikeout percentage in his first 7 starts of the season, but in his last 8 starts, he's almost doubled that rate, up to 22%. So he is striking out more hitters as of late. He's made 1 career start in San Diego. He gave up 6 runs in 3 innings last July, so the Padres have hit Parker well before. We'll see if they can do that here today once again. And that's a look at our starting pitching matchup here today between Stephen Kolek and Mitchell Parker. As always, thank you for listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Your water should be perfect. Well, the Padres picking up a series win yesterday, their first series win in a couple of weeks, and now the Padres trying to take that momentum into a brand new series against the Washington Nationals. Should be a fun one. Padres all of a sudden have won 3 out of their last 4. And we'll see if Stephen Kolek can get it done on the mound here today. When we come back, Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr. have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our post-game coverage. You're listening to your home for San Diego Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan, and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, Padres fans.